All right, welcome back to the TCI Studio. Robert, Plaid, Will over here, and we are going to talk CJ Spiller. As most of you guys know, we actually have had CJ Spiller sitting in this seat, I think, and Will was over there interviewing him.
Yeah.
He signed our little thing over there. So we had him in the studio for a very extensive series last year, and he talked about how he was starting to get into coaching a little bit. This week we got him on a Zoom call after practice. I believe it was Wednesday, and he talked for like 35 minutes. Touched on a ton of subjects. Go watch that video if you haven't. Get you fired up about having that guy as a coach. Will, I'm gonna start with obviously the recruiting guy. I'm gonna start with the recruiting angle. He was asked about what's it like and how's it gonna feel with recruiting, and he talked about how it's different now because everything's remote and Zoom, and he says he's building relationships, but he's looking forward to actually being able to go out and see kids and go to visit schools, and he's looking to the other experienced guys on the staff to do that. But CJ, obviously he's done it and he bleeds orange. So just imagine if you're a mom, a dad, recruit, CJ Spiller comes in your home, that's going to go pretty well.
Yeah, that's CJ. You got a Hall of Famer, college football Hall of Famer, not just a Clemson legend, but he's a college football legend. And that guy's coming in to recruit. And keep in mind, CJ's only 33 years old, and he's already in the College Football Hall of Fame. It tells you the level of respect CJ Spiller has in the college football community. That guy's going in to compete or recruit, And if I'm the guys that got to go against him in the recruiting trail, you're thinking, okay, I'm chalking this up to a loss already, because if CJ wants this guy, he's probably going to get it for a couple of reasons. A, Clemson's brand right now is one of the hottest brands in college football. B, this guy's the position coach. And and C, this guy played at Clemson, and he is a Hall of Famer, and he played in the NFL, and he's got all these things going for him. And then on top of it, CJ is genuine. He's going to be up front with the young man. As he talked about how important that is for him when Dabo and all those guys were recruiting him, he said the reason he went with Coach Sweeney is because he knew Coach Sweeney was genuine. And so he's going to kind of do the same thing and be the same person that Dabo was. And, of course, CJ already is that guy. He's going to be that way when he's recruiting, and that's only going to bode well for Clemson.
Well, and the nice thing about CJ, and we've talked about it before, Will, not sure if we talked about it on air, is CJ's a guy, he's not going to be out there looking for the next job. He's going to be a guy that would love to just stay here, coach running backs, coach with Dabo, who he looks at like a father, and do that, as long as Dabo's here. So he's not looking to maneuver. He's not Tony Elliott, Jeff Scott, looking to move somewhere else and move up the food chain in the coaching. He's going to be thrilled just to be the running back coach at Clemson University.
He is. He said, CJ said this several years back when he was at Clemson, like, what was his future plans? And he said the only thing he knew about his future, this is when he was going to the NFL, was that when he was done playing football, he knew he was going to come back to Clemson because he loves Clemson. Now, he said he didn't know what he was going to do at Clemson, but he knew he was going to come back because Clemson, as he described it, is his home. And he said, it reminds him a lot of Lake Butler. It's a small town. And Coach Sweeney is like a father figure to him. So he wanted to be around Coach Sweeney and his family. And so for CJ, he's at home. So if you're at home and you've kind of planted your roots, as Dabo always says, now he's ready for him to bloom here. And I think I'm with you, Robert. I don't think he's really wanting to go anywhere. Now, you never say never, I guess, but I just don't think he wants to. I think this is where he wants to be, and as long as Dabo Sweeney's here, I think CJ Spiller's going to be here.
Well, one of the nice stories he talked about, just that relationship with Dabo, and he told a story about how every year when he got ready to head off to the NFL, he would sit down with Dabo, who he said basically a conversation like a father would have with a son, and they wouldn't just talk about, hey, what's going to go on with football, but they talk about, hey, what do you want to do this year? What do you want to do after this year? He and Dabo have been talking about getting him on the coaching staff for a long, long time, and basically CJ said those conversations started the first year he went off to the NFL. So he and Dabo would sit down and talk about life and other things every year before CJ would go off to play for the Bills or to play for the Saints.
Yeah, and it's a relationship that began, as I mentioned, his recruiting, right? And Dabo was so genuine with CJ, and CJ he just gravitated toward Dabo, and that relationship started there, and it just carried on all the way through everything decision CJ's made, and it's just a great story of like this father-son kind of respect they have for each other. And, CJ's, his, you just have to watch the video when he talks about Dabo, how his face lights up. It's like, it's like a son talking about his dad. It really is. And Dabo came in, remember during you can see it on the video, Dabo comes in and like halfway through and is like giving him some, trying to be, he's just being Dabo. Yep. It was good to see that. And, it's a great relationship the two guys have. There's mutual respect there, obviously, and there's this caring that they care for each other that's very genuine. And it works, and that's going to work well for Clemson. And again, Dabo knows what he's doing. And Dabo, this is a guy he can trust. This is a guy he knows will sell Clemson and be upfront and honest about what the Clemson culture is. And then he knows he'll sell everything else about the program. And so it's a win-win for Coach Sweeney, and I can understand why. And plus, he's a talented player that's going to probably be a talented coach. There's no doubt in my mind about that because CJ cares. And generally, guys that care and get into coaching, they become pretty darn good coaches.
Yeah, and just CJ, we've talked about this before, I know, on our videos, just he's a Clemson guy, and if you look at that offensive staff, you got Clemson guys all over that staff. You got Thomas Austin waiting in the wings to take over for the offensive line coach at some point. So, I mean, that's like all Clemson. So, a lot of respect between those two. CJ told us last year when he was in here in the studio and he was doing some volunteer high school coaching that he was starting to dabble in it and getting a feel. And
over at Liberty.
They were asking him, and he kept going back to that during the thing. He's like, well, I did it at Liberty and I kind of got a taste for it and, decided, okay, it's time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was at Liberty and he got that flavor, if you will. And I think at that time, Dabo was kind of talking to him, like you mentioned, and was just kind of keeping in his ear. And then CJ got that, he liked it. And I think what CJ liked about it is what I talked about earlier. He likes to see the kids progress and become better, not only better football players, but better young men. And I think CJ liked seeing that what he was doing. And so when he left Liberty, he came over and he started, mentoring, Travis Etienne and these other running backs on staff. And Travis will tell you how much CJ has done for him, even though he wasn't his coach last year. And so he's mentoring those young men. And I think for CJ to see those young men become young men on the field and off the field, I think that's kind of what gets you. And that's what good coaches do. Those are the things that gravitate them. Dabo always talks about how the reason he got back into coaching was because he just loves to coach. He just loves to teach young people and watch them become better young men and players. And so that's what I think CJ feels the same thing, and that's what got him going.
All right, so that's a taste of what CJ talked about. Obviously went into a lot of other topics, but go check out the CJ video on YouTube, on our Facebook. We ran the full video on the website.
By the way, and Tommy Bowden talks about CJ. We got that video up there.
We got that up there.
And that's a great story.
He talks about how if we had the transfer portal back in the day, I believe he told you that, Will, that C.J. Spiller might not have stayed at Clemson.
He said he was really worried about that. And go watch the video. You can see what we're talking about. He said that, if the transfer portal existed in 2007, C.J. might have been gone, and there might have been nothing they could have done about it at that point. But luckily they didn't, so him and Dabo were able to go talk to him and convince him to stay at Clemson because there was a time when he went home that it was almost a done deal.
Mama didn't want him to come to Clemson, and Mama tried to get him to come back. But go watch that video, and Will's got a lot of stories that are going to come out of that video as well. So stay tuned to the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football, Clemson athletics, and recruiting.